I always dream of a city. Perhaps it's the same one each time in these frequently recurring dreams, each one more fraught and anxious than the last. I lose myself in these night fears and insecurities, always screaming the same questions. Where is home? How do I find it? Where are my babies? How can I escape this place? I'm a mother and my children are missing. I'm a child and my mother is missing, somewhere in this city. Graffiti threatens with abstract menace. Public transport's dirty and incomprehensible, and I'm lost without map, with no speech, no money. Worst of all, the dream city's landscape perpetually changes. I look behind me to discover that the path I've walked is no longer located where I've been, but is now part of a different cityscape altogether. Each moment within the dream, it tangles and complicates just that little bit more. Cities and crowds equal fear and loss. Perth was where I came into being in July 1967, that so-called summer of love. Yet I imagine my first few months to be more reminiscent of the monochrome semi-squalor of the BAFTA-winning film A Taste of Honey than of the thrillingly psychedelic 1960s adventure of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. I was born to a child from a coastal village, an innocent seaside girl, and a stranger to Perth. I can only imagine how she might have first experienced that city's differently shaped terrors, perhaps as in my dreams. An innocent and idealistic young lady, sheltered, wide-eyed, and the eldest of 12, she was enticed willingly into the bosom of this comparatively heaving metropolis. But her past was amongst the shingle and rocks, and whatever her reasons were for moving away, she stayed away. The crowds, the high buildings, and energetic life must have seemed wonderfully exciting to her as she acquainted herself with the rugged urban landscape and the rugged urban boys. It's a long and sad story to be told another day, but it culminates in 2 pregnancies, 2 years apart. And yes, this woman, left alone, desperate and with serious problems of her own, tried her best to care for her children, for a few months anyway. I know that because I remember it. You will say that it can't be the case, and of course a 5-month-old child can't remember snippets of their day-to-day existence. But if they aren't real, why have I dreamt these same memories so often? Perhaps what I remember is a fake memory born from a childhood imagining that's refused to leave my consciousness. Or perhaps I'm placing myself in gritty kitchen street dramas from the same era, all angry young men and desperate young mothers. But all I know is that I remember, whatever that means. I remember being held up by cushions in a high chair, wooden, dirty and far too large for me. I remember being offered a finger of food, bread maybe, or toast, trying to hold it, gumming it. Yes, I know it's unlikely this is a real memory. I was only 5 months old. But I also remember smiles and tears and the smell of tobacco and urine in stairwells, which wafted into our flat the moment the front door was opened, replacing the steamy aroma of nappies drying. I remember tears too, and they weren't my own. I see a woman's round, red face and dark, greasy hair. My mum, the apartment dweller and single mother of 2, was impoverished and soon to be made homeless. Perhaps the tears were hers. It seems likely. My sweet and simple child mum, I'm grateful she tried her best. But in a spirit of compassion and desperation, I was given up for adoption at around 6 months old. She gifted me a better life. Moved from her scruffy home to somewhere that could only be described as an orphanage, I was speedily selected by loving new parents who transported me to another, only slightly more salubrious residence. Dad at the time was engineering, learning his trade at a factory in the city. Mum was a nurse. Far from their own families, they sought baby advice from the old wino wifey down the road. I guess at that time, babies were easy to come by, but parenting classes far less so. I was seduced to settle and sleep with drops of brandy infusing my warm bottled milk. Then I'd be tucked up, papoose-like, into a stiff rectangular navy blue carry cot before my transfer to an old drawer to complete my night's sleep. But I was loved and cared for, despite the makeshift surroundings. It's natural enough to wonder what might have been if my child mum hadn't given up, if she tried to keep me and go it alone. Imagining my teenage years with hard drugs proliferating in this epicentre of deprivation and poverty, I see my lonely figure squatting in revoltingly dirty shared walkways of 60s built flats. Walls adorned with artless graffiti and floors adorned with a litter of no-care tenants. I visualise the scene and shiver. Lost amongst the city's perilously high buildings, and unable to concentrate, I must get out. This city has too much of everything, but too little soul. And there's my recurring dream again. It's always the same: cities, poverty, public transport, deprivation, dirt, fear and loss. Memories and imaginings. What came first?